Chuck Todd is NBC's political director and moderator of Meet the Press. Chuck, good morning. Always good to see you. Boy, you look at that list of people inside Virginia who've come out and said that Governor Northam has to resign. The one that jumped out at me was an icon in the state's first African-American governor, Doug Wilder, who said it's time to go. Is there any way Governor Northam survives this?
No, there's not. I mean, it's clearly a matter of when he leaves office. Is he going to have to be forcibly removed, or is he going to finally see the light here? You know, I have to say, I go back to here and think about Virginia's history. This blackface appeared in a 1984 yearbook. Doug Wilder was elected as the first African-American statewide official in Virginia ever as lieutenant governor in 1985. Okay, 1 year apart. So this idea that somehow that was another time and another era, Virginia's own history shows that that is just not true. So look, I think if you put yourself in his shoes, he's thinking, what's the difference between resigning today and next week? But for the Democrats, every hour feels excruciating, I think.
Meanwhile, next door in Washington, Chuck, the president finally will give that delayed State of the Union address on Tuesday. And from there, it will be only 10 days till February the 15th, when we could have, yes, another government shutdown. Nancy Pelosi, the speaker, looks dug in. She says no wall funding in any bill we're putting out from the Democratic side. The president says no wall, no deal. What are we headed for here?
Look, I think we're headed for the president declaring a national emergency, him signing legislation he doesn't like, because at the end of the day, he knows there's no support in Congress on his side of the aisle for another government shutdown. So that's why he's talking up the national emergency so much again. But I'll tell you, that comes with risk. Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader, is warning the president that that's going to divide his own party even more than the government shutdown divided Senate Republicans. So, you know, I have to admit, I'm curious to see how the president sells this on Tuesday night at the State of the Union, because the White House claims he wants to talk about bringing the country together. Campaigning on a national emergency isn't to pay for your border wall isn't a way to do that.
So, Chuck, meanwhile, the Democrats continue to add to the list of potential candidates to unseat the President of the United States. Cory Booker jumping in the race. Howard Schultz, the former Starbucks CEO, causing quite a stir, mostly among progressives. What are the chances for Cory Booker here? What's his lane in this crowded field?
Well, look, I think Cory Booker is one of these guys that thinks he can sort of fuse multiple lanes together. He's an inspiring campaign stumper, if you will. At the same time, some progressives might think he's, not necessarily one of them. He has been a supporter of charter schools in the past, something Chris Christie prominently said earlier this week. I think it was done as a dig to try to get the left of the party, of the Democrats, on him. But that's the lane for him, is that Cory Booker thinks he's one of these that can do multiple lanes, right? Bring together multiple parts of the party. If he can, that's a way to the nomination. We'll see.
All right, Chuck Todd, thank you as always. Chuck will have much more on the Virginia governor's refusal so far to step down when Chuck talks to both the Congressional Black Caucus chair and whip on Meet the Press. And be sure to tune in NBC Tuesday night when President Trump gives his State of the Union address. Our coverage begins at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.